welcome to Kiss and Tell podcast. Thank you for joining us. We're kissing and telling. We're breaking the barrier of the idiom never kiss and tell. We disagree. That's an outdated thought. It's time to kiss and tell as often as you can. And we're kissing and telling today about pride and about all the laws that are changing affecting the LGBTQIA community. And we're here to support, having a conversation. Because to me, at least from what I've seen over the past year or so, is I cannot see where the conversation is happening, where it benefits the community. All I see are laws are changing, bans are happening, books are being taken from the shelf, and all that fun stuff without talking about it first. It just happened, unless I missed something. Sabrina, welcome. Savannah, welcome.
Hey,
Yeah.
hi, KNT family. Dr. Sabrina Rojek
Mhm.
here with Dr. Jenny. We're here with Kiss and Tell magazine. You're kissing, we're telling, or we're kissing, and you're telling, somebody's telling about what people are doing. And so today, as Dr. Jenny just said, we're going to be talking about LGBTQIA plus. We're going to be talking about the 75 plus different record number of bills, of laws, of revocations, of overturnings, of all kind of shenanigans and tomfoolery in regards to these different communities. And so I'm super excited to talk about this, excited in a pissed off way, but also to get to bring, some awareness and some conversation, I think in a bit more of a useful, helpful way, as well as being able to maybe provide some resources or at least some ideas from some therapists, from some conversation to be had. So this is an activating conversation for a lot of people. I do want to give a bit of a disclaimer or a what have yous for sensitive listeners or those that are easily upset, that this may be one of those type of triggering conversations for you. So just giving it. So of course, to practice good self-care if it's needed for any of these topics. And as always, send in any of your thoughts, experiences, stories that you care to share to us here at Kiss and Tell. You can go to kissandtellmagazine.com, or you can just send us an email, socials. You can get to us through any of our socials, and we'll be happy to answer your questions or point you in the right direction. All right, Jenny, I just went long-winded. Was there anything you wanted to kick off with? I've got lots of convo, but I want to make sure you kick off with your pieces.
Well, we're going to just show it from the talking points that, I have listed. Like,
Yep.
in the past several years, there have been more bills introduced into the state legislature than in the past
75 of
years.
them.
Yeah, 70, yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that is
75 bills. We like about what? Go ahead.
yeah, but
We can't get it to happen for shit that matters, but this we can. Okay.
well, what's interesting to me about it is why? Why is it 75 bills? Or what has happened? We were supporting progress,
We were.
and
And then elections started
yeah,
to come back around, right?
but
Like, isn't that when all of these things start rearing their ugly heads and people start trying to make points and doing things for whatever's? So this started last year, but by December, it was like at the end of last year, but by December of 2023, then excuse me, a lot of these were full in effect already happening. And as far as the upgrade, I guess, for the new year, then just this last March, because there's elections, and so it's not just presidential, then there's state, and there's all these other little things and people and bills that they're trying to slide in there when people aren't
right.
paying attention. So that's the other thing, is when there's something going on in the news, that a big distraction, and
right,
an election or other things that they don't want you to pay attention to, all of a sudden all of these things are out. March, they had a whole bunch. There was a 33 or some absurd number that had gotten like revoked or were being revisited even after a decision had just gotten made in the last year. And then July is there's more changes coming up, whatever. So this conservative lobby,
right,
is really, really trying to make a hard swing. We just did our podcasts on abortions and women's rights and that kind of come along with that and talking
right,
about progression. And let's add all the minorities, like
mhm,
of what we call minorities. Women are not minorities, but we're
right,
still clearly treated like some. But we're
right,
adding all the minorities and they're all up on the dockets. Yeah.
right,
So what are we arguing about?
mhm,
We're arguing about, I know we've got a big list here, but we're arguing about gender affirming care.
right,
So let's start talking about some of these letters and how we're being affected here. Transgender care is probably one of the, I guess, largest, having piggyback a few years off of the big push with transgender things and whatnot. So the biggest issue that's happening, well, not the biggest, there's lots, but one of the issues that's happening that I think is one of the biggest that has the largest repercussions is the amount of kids. That's a whole
mhm,
topic for folks, right? Transgender and kids,
mhm,
uh, whatever your thoughts and your beliefs and your ideas about that, on whether or not children should get to make that decision, whether or not parents should support the decision of their children, etc., etc.
mhm,
However, there are children that have started let's say they were going to go on hormones. Not everybody who's transgender or who transitions does hormone therapy.
right,
Not all of them do that. Not all of them choose to get surgery even, and it could be a mix of things.
mhm,
But here's the issue. When people are transitioning, especially from gender markers or cisgender female to
mhm,
male, it is a big effing deal. I mean, it's a
mhm,
big deal to go from male to female, but not as big.
mhm,
The brain on testosterone looks completely different. A male brain that has testosterone happening in it in the amounts that creates you to make you a boy
right,
creates physical changes in the brain besides aggression, emotional and hormonal disrupts like nobody's business. And so for those that were transitioning and had started already, depending on what state you lived in, if you didn't
mhm,
get grandfathered into their healthcare, your stuff stopped. That
right,
means your hormones or your hormone blockers,
right,
depending on where and how old you are and puberty and where you're at on that, or your hormone blockers, you no longer get to have them. So that
right,
means you went from yesterday, you took your T, let's say you took your
mhm,
testosterone or you took your
mhm,
blockers, whatever's to help you not develop breasts or whatever else is going on. And now you don't get to have that anymore if you didn't get grandfathered in. So we're stopping, like, to start and stop hormones for anybody like that is no good.
right,
But to do that with kids who are already hormonally, mentally, physically, our brains aren't even fully developed until 25 years old.
right,
To do that for kids who are we already know that the LGBTQIA, not just transgender, have some of the highest
mhm,
suicide rates, suicide ideality, homelessness, all of
mhm,
these different rates. And so we're taking body dysmorphia, this population that's already just trying to live their lives
right,
and really messing with it hormonally,
mhm,
chemically, in all these other ways as well. So again, lots and lots of different things. Gender markers.
right,
There's lots of states that have now made it, 22, I think, 22 states that have gender affirming care laws and things that they have passed. There's been 11 states that have tried to overturn them. Um, but yes, gender affirming care. Uh,
mhm,
your gender markers. That's a process if you want to get it changed on your birth certificate. Let's say you have to go to a
mhm,
therapist, you have to do certain things, you have to go to court and have your birth certificate changed. States have banned that. There are certain states where you can't do that. You can't get your gender marker changed anymore. Are you effing kidding me? Lots of judges are overturning it in different states. Florida being one of them. There was a judge that has overturned and partially halfway. What else? What else have you seen or heard about on that topic,
Well,
Jenny?
speaking of Florida, with the big thing was the don't say gay law,
Mm,
which
don't say gay.
basically was about sex and,
Mm-hmm.
in elementary
Yep.
school.
Not just elementary, also high school. It's pre-K through 12.
Okay,
Yep.
I thought it was mainly elementary, but I
I
did,
thought so too.
okay, it's the whole thing, the whole
It's the
kid.
whole thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, but even then, from my understanding, they're not allowing experts into helping them make these choices. So an expert such as you and I, if they were to propose that bill to us, now I understand that you want to watch your P's and Q's, so to speak, from K to 12. There are some things that might not need to know right away. However, when it comes to sexuality, you and I both know that it's not something that we lay in bed and say, hey, I feel like, being attracted to the same sex today because I have nothing better to do.
This would make me so mad. It
But,
gets lumped together with
but,
sex ed.
but it does.
Yes.
Yeah,
And like that's a whole topic that I see red on
but,
the conservative laws, religion in schools,
mhm,
and my one thing that I will say on that is studies have shown years on every topic concerned
mhm,
that not talking about something doesn't help. And so
but,
the majority of, sex education, along with not being able to change your Mr. or Miss, there were some teachers
mhm,
that had put like MX instead of
but,
Mr. or Mix. Miss, you're not do that. Gender your pronouns,
but,
changing your pronouns and using they other than she or he. It would be these types of things as well. But then the other things is then schools in general, books. They're
mhm,
banning books.
but,
Then you can't say gay. So we're taking away the vocabulary that we
mhm,
have and that America's has and
mhm,
created
but,
for the community. And so we're saying we're going to take away the words that we would use to talk about this community. This is how we erase communities. This is how our society does this. For the things that it doesn't like to talk about, for the history that it doesn't like to look at, this is how it erases things. It
mhm,
starts number one, these types of laws and things if it was needed, but we start removing the words for the people. We're talking about people,
right.
right? We're not talking about words. We're not talking about labels, although
Mhm,
that's what this is getting reduced to.
mhm,
Um, the one thing I did want to say before I move on, I know we're going to come back to it on the healthcare
mhm,
piece. And then I do want to come back to schools because there's more to talk about on schools and especially how they're being affected and kids and they're they're gonna get it the hardest. I mean, the adults, of course, are getting a kick in the face for sure, but like we're really confusing our kids. Back on the medical real fast, I did want to say being also a medical professional, I also teach doctors and nurses how literally internationally, along with their EMRs, the electronic medical records of how they're intaking patient information. That now includes, I've been a part for the last 4 years, 5 years of the builds across the
mhm,
United States, last 6 years, that has pronouns and has other things for transgender care for the community. The thing that I do want to say that is a big argument, because I started to say it about the school things, is I'm saying this is labels. Whereas when it comes to healthcare, a lot of people will argue and say, a lot of doctors even that don't agree with gender affirming care or any of that stuff, that, well, I just need to know if you're a boy or you're a girl, regardless, right, of how you think about it, regardless of if you're intersex, regardless of that. As a provider, what I do want to say is I want to take this to educate the people that are going to the healthcare and to the doctors that might want to argue some of this piece. The healthcare piece is really important for us to know what your biomarkers are, meaning, were you biological boy or you a biological girl? Regardless of what you are calling yourself sort of the transitioning to. This is not to be disrespectful or to disregard you.
Mm-hmm.
It's, as a medical professional, I am going to consider, of course, your thoughts, your feelings, as well as but I need to consider your chemical and hormonal makeup.
Yeah.
So we need to know those things because certain medications, because certain interactions, because if you are taking, let's say, hormone blockers, beta blockers, and you're a teenager, transgender care or whatnot and whatevers, that causes bone density loss. So there's
Mm-hmm.
certain things that also need to be educated. So not every one of us, not all healthcare providers or educators are trying to hurt or harm, but there are certain informations that are necessary in order to be able to give literally proper care, right?
Right.
I wanted to give that little caveat because I see that a lot. I see the upset and the anger from providers' perspective,
Right.
nurses of having to ask these questions, and then I see the discomfort and the floundering from the patient care side. So I get to see both sides of how healthcare is kind of handling this. So I wanted to speak to that piece just really briefly, but
Uh,
back to the school thing. Go ahead.
well, to me, the other part of the healthcare thing is some physicians or people trained like you might not have the answer. And
That too.
instead of saying I don't know, they're answering anyway. And then
Yes.
going by their gut feeling instead of what they truly know,
Mm, mm,
which isn't helping anybody either.
for
I mean,
sure. Too
no,
many
right,
personal thoughts and opinions when it shouldn't matter, like doctor, therapist, or whatever you are, but providers across the board, and having to take some sort of that type of training of when you have an emotional thing about the person that you're supposed to give good care to, but you
mhm,
have some personal conflict that you've decided is more important. I don't think you should be in your profession. One of the things that I had looked up that I wanted to share that I think is bananas on transgender kids,
mhm.
again, on assignments, Missouri has it to where parents can sue their children for their healthcare decision for transitioning up until they're effing 36 years old.
What?
Up until the child is 36, the parents can sue the child for deciding to become transgender.
Whoa, that I had not heard. That is
Yeah,
ridiculous.
Missouri. That's
That,
Missouri for you. Maybe there's other places. Up to 36 parents. So if parents, very conservative parents, that you want to control your children and their lives and their happiness and most likely their suicides, move to Missouri.
but
36 years old. The other thing now, there's also, here's what I love to hear, and I appreciate this, particularly for some of the gender assigning stuffs that the AMA, the Academy of Pediatrics, the American Psychology Association, APA, they all opposed the ban. They all opposed the ban for again, gender affirming care, particularly for transitioning, particularly for if they've already started hormones, beta blockers, chemical, right? Hormone therapy, a chemical assisted therapy of sorts that they recommend. The Academy of Pediatrics that has doctors on that board,
uh,
they oppose the ban. So
uh,
these are doctors, these are people that other people want to say that they trust, that they only trust doctors, right? Like,
but
um, these are those major APA, the American Psychological Association, right? Like we have to deal with them, and they are even also saying like this is not okay. So I want to point that out. So a lot of these states have oh, go ahead.
So wait a minute. So if they're 37, you can't sue them?
I guess not. I mean, I'm sure that's going to be a thing too. But
Yeah,
what
who
the hell?
gave
Like
them that? Who gave them that number? I mean,
could you imagine? Like,
you,
okay,
if you're if you're
I can
legal,
understand. I can play the game.
I mean, yeah,
I can play the game of being a really pissed off parent, so much so that, you know, my kid took away my little boy or my little girl, that I'm so pissed off that I want to sue my own child. That's
uh,
amazing. But then I'm going to be so pissed off that double the legal age of adulthood, you
yeah.
could retroactively, hold on a minute. I'm so pissed off I knocked over my phone. You can retroactively sue your children. Why I'm extra pissed off about this is because as a sex therapist, as an educator, as an accompaniment for people who have been raped, for people who have had horrible things happen and sexual assault and going to court and all of that, the statute of limitations isn't even that freaking long.
Savannah said, pertaining to misery, but not misery, Missouri.
Missouri, well, hell,
Sorry.
it's pretty miserousness.
Oops.
Sorry, Missouri.
Is that other than get cause of emotional distress, or what? How does that even stand up in court? Yeah, it's amazing. How would that stand up in court? I mean,
Which
you
piece?
know,
Sorry, can we say that again?
yeah, is that pertaining to that what they're doing in that state? We're suing them to the age 36.
Yeah.
Is that under
Okay.
the cause of emotional distress or what? How does that
Oh,
even stand up in court?
yeah. You know what? Let me see, because I actually think, let me see if I have some of my notes here and my references. So let me see if it addressed this piece in the thingies that I've gotten here. Let's see. Minors to be sued by their parents until they turn 36. As a result, this one particular person had been receiving care for more than a year. They got a thing that said that they will no longer have care. In this case, this was like a loving parent that is for their child's transition. And so she's talking about how the mother sat and cried with her child when they found this part out. It doesn't say in this. I'm sure we could find it. Ooh, but the Missouri law that affected, again, this child's care that I was looking at in particular, Republican state, more than 500 state bills targeting lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people that have been introduced in 2023. And of those bills, 75 became law if it's emotional distress. I would imagine that would be the only thing that it could be, really, I think. Drag queens
Oh,
have been in schools for a while now, as well as lots of different characters, whether or not they should or were qualified to read
mhm.
to our children. That has been demonstrated by one of our former President Bushes, that he couldn't even read to the children, let alone, show up and be in the classroom.
Right.
However, it's offensive to a bunch of people for their children to see drag queens. This also then goes hand in hand kind of with that idea with the sex education of what we were talking about, pre-K through 12th, which I just think is absurd.
Mm-hmm.
But again, they're using the same kind of measurement that they use for sex ed on
Right.
what is appropriate, which they should not be making the idea, they should not be able to say what is age appropriate or not, because there again, we also know what abstinence curriculums and what
Mhm.
those look like. They don't talk about anything, they don't teach anything. And
Right.
again, we've seen statistically that does not serve anyone. So drag queens, how do you feel about it? Florida's been in the news a lot
Yeah.
regarding a lot of things.
Yeah.
The age appropriateness, the drag queens and kings are just gonna brainwash your children to be horrible people. somehow like gay wipes off. It's not gay doesn't rub off. Like we know
Yeah,
how at this point.
but I'm gonna address what Savannah had.
Yes.
She's talking about drag kings
Yes.
or
When I was talking
flamboyant,
about drag, yeah, when I
yeah,
was talking about
like,
seeing women in particular, but that also drag kings. Yes.
like,
Go ahead.
in some way
Will
over
you
the
finish
top.
reading the message?
Yeah, a flamboyant and in some way over the top king, river glass, they, them, for instance, is still just as
Yes.
colorful and made up as Trixie
Trixie
Mattel.
Mattel.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes. And Trixie Mattel, if is very Barbie, over the top, exaggerated Barbie, kind of a look, the makeup and things. And so,
but,
yes, not all drag kings. And depending on your experience of shows and things like this, my experience, they were usually more flamboyant for sure, drag kings, and not just where you're trying to pass as a dude, but
but,
also very colorful. And there's also everything in between, right? Again, it's not just, along with even kind of in the transgender spot, drag kings, queens, you're
but,
not always in full makeup and all of
but,
this. You might be a variation, you might have a beard and make,
but,
right? Like there's so many things that people are playing with their gender fluidity and all of this sort of a stuff. I think it's fabulous. So yes, that
uh,
the with the flamboyancies and of these things of drag kings are also
any type of dress up
right.
into that same thing. So Ronald McDonald, any of that should be in to me. But maybe I'm making it sound too simple. Another issue is that we're having difficulty with is some states refuse to let same-sex couples adopt. So
Yeah.
if Roe v. Wade is overturned, obviously, and we're all promoting you must have the child, save the child. But some people aren't able to raise the child for whatever reason, then usually adoption's an option. But if they can't find a couple, but a gay couple, lesbian couple, whoever, wants to adopt, you can deny a child being raised by two loving people over
I
you know,
yes.
over what their preferences in their bedroom.
Which is nobody's business anyways, right?
Yeah,
Like
I
who
mean,
you choose to screw is nobody else's business on this entire freaking planet at
but
all.
but
Yeah. And then yes, I worked in even as a kid, I worked in the foster care system, and I was a foster care advocate, and I'm now therapist and all of the rest. I cannot get started on this topic. The statistics already for the amount of children, and in our country, I don't think you need to be looking up these statistics to have some sort of an idea to know that they're not good, of how many children of all colors, races, shapes, and sizes. So it's not even like we could just say it's predominantly all of these certain races of babies and what. No, all types of children. The amount of children, the inundation in the system is insane.
yeah,
And the amount of qualified people. So, for a while there, however you want to say this or however it sounds, they were just giving away babies and kids. And there's certain counties and districts that still do. And
uh,
lots of people cash in and make lots of money on just, collecting babies. However, finding qualified people that actually, can contribute something useful and helpful and loving and supportive. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, just a couple of them. Could we please check a couple
yeah,
of those boxes? It is insane to me, the barriers that are created towards this. I at the time, even as an adult later on in my life, when I was like 30, 33 or something like this, when I had my daughter, I was a single mom.
mhm,
I was I was going to adopt. I was going to at least do some foster and do some
mhm,
breaks for people or whatever's. I couldn't as a single mom
mhm,
back then in certain states.
mhm,
Now, yeah, but it
yeah,
is insane that if somebody has the means, I'm not going to beat the horse. Who gives a shit? Who and what they stick their whatevers
Right.
does not mess with their capacity for caring for others.
But
Here's the
no,
other thing. I've looked at the statistics that people don't want to talk about, which is the gay couples, however they look, or the statistics for abuse or for the other things. It's not a thing in the
oh,
way that it's a thing
no. Oh,
for
really?
no, it's not a thing in the way that it is for man and woman
Right.
couples, since those are the ideal, no matter what your background, since that's the only thing that matters.
Right.
Yeah, they do better. They also
Oh,
tend to last longer. Actually, their relationships in general tend to last longer than marriages, partnerships rather.
it's just like I said, that if taking that option away from
Yeah.
foster kids with kids that need a home, they're silly.
The kids.
You're punishing the kids.
Oh,
The
for
kid,
sure. And like
yeah,
ask the
right.
kids. Could you imagine? Could you imagine if we told like a teenage kids that would know the difference and who've been in the system and have all of the issues and the things that we know for kids that are in the system and what happens? Could
Mhm.
you imagine if you told groups of them like, oh yeah, we had parents lined up for you, but they were gay, so you couldn't have them?
Right,
You think like
right,
how do you think they would feel? They're the ones having to be raised and, corrupted.
right,
What do you think the child would choose if they had an option, if
right,
we gave them an option
right. And there's
between staying in the system or going with a gay family?
right, because statistics show that the system is not a good place for them to be to begin with.
At
It
all.
causes more trouble than it's helping.
Every single time, like our
Right,
statistics have really shown that. Like, so again, this
right,
anti-abort, just even with the anti-abortion stuff,
mhm,
it's like you say that you're here for the kids. We already know that that's bullshit,
right,
right? Like, what
right,
is it? Because you're saying you want the kids, so let's keep making more babies. Let's put them into the system, and then let's put them into a system where then we're also saying that loving people, single, otherwise partnered, gay, doesn't matter, that they can't help
so that
like our national issue.
right, right,
There's multiple reasons, and they're not being acknowledged by the conservative party because we're just throwing out the pieces that we don't want to pay attention to, which is what they've often done. But the reason is recognizing the problems, the downstream inevitable, not a possibility, real absolute problems that we know will happen for these people, not just for children, but for these people in general. When we start taking away rights and humanity, when we, not start, when we do it again, but now
right,
we're doing this in force in modern time, like
mhm,
it, the depression. So again, it's recognizing the downstream problems that this is going to cause. So
right,
not just for families, right? So children can't get adopted, right? Because gay families and couples, and so gay families and couples that wanted children, well, fuck you.
mhm,
And then the children that wanted to be adopted, fuck you too. You
right,
you can just hang out where you're at.
right,
Like we're depression, the body
mhm,
dysmorphia, suicide rates,
right,
mental health issues that are already at an all-time high and untreated.
mhm,
Most people out here walking around, I think we have some of the highest statistics that I think that we've probably ever had, or at least that are being self-reported. I don't know, and that's probably a big difference. We know that boomers and above don't really report as much. Whereas these days, like the newer generations, the younger generations, they're all about their mental health. So we don't like just the uptick in the issues that we've already seen. Also, post COVID, the uptick that we already saw, the amount of people not getting seen, there's not enough appointments. So now what do we do? Do you have thoughts or ideas on what are some suggestions, resources? I've got some that I'm thinking of maybe that we could give to folks. I know for me, having this conversation, um, and I see your comment, Savannah. I'm going to read it just a second. But even just having this conversation, just like I said, it makes me mad, and then I don't almost know where to go because I just get so mad, but then sad. I mean, it's sadness behind a lot of these, that knowing that people are just being treated shitty, and I hate that. Like, I hate that people, just for the sake of treating somebody horribly, is being treated horribly.
Yeah,
That's not a good society.
I
That's not a
agree.
good society, a healthy society.
And that might be, have a little puke in my mouth, so to speak, that we can
God,
be, yeah, that we can be that nasty to people.
yes,
And that we
yes,
can,
and that's what it is that we could.
they're still,
Ah,
fellow human beings.
but we care more about what the beings are doing that has nothing to do with us,
Right.
like, then we do the things that, it's just so skewed and ridiculous. So here's my thoughts and ideas is, I'm feeling upset, and then it's easy to feel hopeless, and then that leads to apathy, where you're
Mhm,
like, I'm just so overwhelmed with all of the effery
mhm.
that I don't even know where to begin. And so then we become apathetic, and then we do nothing at all. We say nothing, we share nothing, we stand up, we do nothing, we just get crushed by it. And so for me, I'm feeling a certain type of way. So I know that after this is done, and I've even started it during it, I'm doing
Mhm,
certain breaths. I'm doing certain things to ground myself. I'm feeling my heart start to race, or if I'm feeling my hands getting sweaty, or if there was even a moment that I was feeling my body was starting to shake. And
mhm.
so just honoring that for ourselves. And so maybe just even taking this moment. I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to take a therapy moment, a therapy timeout, and do some self-care, which is, I'm going to allow myself to ground. You can do that for yourself too if you need to. I'm going to take a couple of breaths right now, just to slow myself down, so that I can also slow down my thoughts, so I can be of some use
So,
outside of being able to. Go ahead.
no, yes, I agree with what you're saying. Yes, you remind yourself, this isn't personal. This isn't, don't, because you're right, you can get all caught up in this, to the point that you're stuck. So, in wrapping up today's podcast, let's suggest to people,
Yep.
an election is coming up, and in that election, many people are going to be on the ballot, and wherever you live, state, whatnot, is learning which of the people on the ballot benefit society, not just benefit themselves. Um,
Yeah.
you know, I mean,
Yes.
I
I
mean, I, and maybe I might think, I believe in doing the right thing before the law, and to me, putting people before me is more important than my needs, especially if I'm in the public office. But time to get out and vote and learn. You can easily pull up each candidate, president, congressman, senator, mayor, school board person, and
School
find out,
boards,
yeah,
those people that matter to you in your community. Yeah,
like find out what they stand for. You know, the other
absolutely.
the other thing to do is find out what did they stand for a year ago,
Say that
because
again. When did they what a
what
year ago?
what did they stand for a year
Oh
ago?
yeah, before
Yeah,
it was too much election stuff, what were they
yeah,
talking about? And then
but
now what are they talking about all of a sudden that's important? What were they
but
about before they were trying to do something?
but because right now what's happening, because the election is 4 months away, a little less than that, but is people are shifting their voice because they know they're losing
That
following.
what are the other things that you can do, and resources? So one, as far as if you're being affected by any of these things, um, if you're any part of the alphabet soup and you're in that community, support right? So first primary, I would say, is to seek out your support network, whether that
Yeah.
is friends and family, and you have an amazing one. I love that for you. If you don't have so many friends and families, then, sometimes we got to pay for it and buy support, and that's okay. And then that's where you get a therapist or you get somebody that you trust in your community or whatever's. And if you've got to throw some money at them, but
Right.
get the support that you need from the mental, emotional, physical help. That's the number one. Become a part of these groups and community. The whole point of all of these things is to break apart people's communities. And
Yeah.
so, as long as you keep active your community and you stay involved in the parts that mean something to you and your family members, and there's lots and lots of different ways to get involved. So, one that could be teaching people just on the election stuff and how to vote and what they're voting for. Could be just bringing up your personal stories and showing that you're a regular human being to, your friends and things. It might be that you do go volunteer to go read to some children or to go do the thing, fill a need, right? Like if you see the gap, fill a need. There's always walks and there's benefits and there's different programs that you can donate to. There's all kinds of programs, which are ones that you feel, particularly connected to. And I like NAMI. I like the Trevor Project. I like, some of these different ones. So you can donate to to these organizations. There's people who are lobbying. There's people who are creating anti-programs. There's people who are the doctors and the professionals that are stepping up, like myself, like ourselves, stepping up and also saying whether or not we're part of whether or not you're part of the alphabet soup or whether or not you're an ally that is part of the soup, and especially practitioners, doctors, lawyers, the people that help changing the laws, the gender markers, that are the support people, the voice, those people of being brave or, just doing your thing and rocking it out and supporting those folks, looking up those businesses that are owned and allies and that support, our friends and our peoples. And so get in where you fit in, just like in anything is if it bothers you, do something.
But
Phone a friend, talk to somebody, get involved, however it makes sense for you and whatever lights you up.
And I have to add that you're a human being and your life matters. Don't have the conservative viewpoint, outdated thinking leads you to believe that your life is not important. Your life is important. You're a human being.
And there's also statistics that they want to try to throw out. Statistics or what you see in media that makes us feel like we're the minority. The majority of the minority groups are not actually minorities. They're the majority. And so it's not a minority group of supporters or people who are somewhere in that alphabet soup. It's somewhere like most of our statistics, which is around the 50% mark. Most of our statistics, American statistics, even though we think they're super skewed, they're not. They're pretty much right around in the middle. And that means it's not as horrible and as bad either as they're trying to make it seem and feel. Again, that destroying from the inside out type of a thing. So I also just the encouragement of keep heart, gather in groups, gather, spread your information. That is what they don't want. And that's on any topic that any American in particular or any other people's is when there's an agenda, they do not want the people to gather anyways, right? Like that literally defeats what they're trying to do. Unity, community is common unity. Find something to be in common unity with somebody about instead of trying to find all the ways that we're separate and different. We already know we're separate and different. Like, get over it already. So now let's just see the ways that we are similar. Join a group, phone a friend, tell somebody you love them, or just smile to somebody because you have no idea what they're going through, that you have no idea what their day looks like and what their life looks like. Mind your business and keep it moving. That's what I'm kissing and telling about. Mind your business and keep it moving.
And thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and comment all you want to on YouTube. And we'd love to hear your feedback. Thank you.
What email address? Would you mind telling it to our friends one more time out here? If people want to message us, if they want to send their stories, if they want to send it directly through an email, what's our email address at Kiss and Tell Magazine?
It's contact@kissandtellmagazine.com. Once again,
Contact.
contact.
We should, yeah.
Yeah.
At kissandtellmagazine.com. Also,
Yeah.
have a look at us. Like she said, follow, subscribe, interact. And we're always looking for different guests. And we're also real people, regular people. If you want to share your story, if you've got something to say and you want to talk about it, then drop us a message and let us know. Have a fabulous day, friends.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Awesome.